Our lesbian love. The metal door slammed shut behind Officer Maya Chen for the 1,000th time. But on this particular Tuesday morning in late autumn, something felt different. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the women's correctional facility where she had worked for 3 years, casting their familiar harsh glow on gray concrete walls that had witnessed countless stories of pain, redemption, and everything in between. Maya had always prided herself on her professionalism, on the invisible barrier she maintained between herself and the inmates. But that barrier was about to crumble in ways she could never have anticipated. She first saw Sera Morales during the morning head count in Block C. Sera was new, transferred from a facility upstate, and she sat on the edge of her bunk, with a posture that somehow managed to convey both defeat and defiance. Her dark hair fell in waves around her face, partially hiding eyes that held stories Maya couldn't yet read. There was something about the way Sera looked at the world, as if she was observing it from behind glass, present but somehow unreachable. Maya felt an unexpected tug in her chest, a curiosity that went beyond the routine assessment of a new inmate. She quickly looked away, counting heads mechanically, but Sera's image had already burned itself into her memory. The weeks that followed were torturous in their ordinariness. Maya found herself unconsciously tracking Sera's movements during her shifts, noticing the way she kept to herself in the cafeteria, the way she spent hours in the library corner, lost in books that transported her beyond these walls. Sera had been sentenced to 5 years for a crime she insisted she didn't commit. A case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, tangled up in her ex-girlfriend's drug operation. Maya had read her file, seen the transcript of her trial, and found herself believing every word of Sera's claim of innocence. It was dangerous, this belief, this investment in one person's story among the hundreds she encountered, but Maya couldn't help herself. Their first real conversation happened in the library. Maya was conducting a routine check when she noticed Sera reading a collection of Emily Dickinson's poetry. The irony wasn't lost on either of them, finding beauty and freedom in verses written by a woman who had chosen her own form of confinement. Maya made some comment about the poet, something safe and professional, but Sera looked up with eyes that seemed to see straight through her uniform to the person underneath. They talked for 7 minutes, which was 6 minutes longer than Maya should have allowed, about poetry and paradox, about how Dickinson wrote of liberty while rarely leaving her room. When Maya walked away, her heart was racing in a way that had nothing to do with the physical demands of her job. The guilt came in waves after that. Maya lay awake at night in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, trying to rationalize what she was feeling. She had always been professional, always kept her distance, but Sera had somehow slipped past every defense she had carefully constructed. Maya knew the rules, knew the power dynamics at play, knew that what she was feeling was not only inappropriate, but potentially career-ending. She was the one with power in this situation, the one who held the keys, and Sera was vulnerable, trapped, dependent on the system Maya represented. Yet when she saw Sera in the yard, reading in the weak autumn sunlight, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years, something that felt dangerously close to hope. Sera, for her part, seemed equally conflicted. Maya noticed the way Sera would sometimes catch her eye across the cafeteria and then quickly look away, a flush creeping up her neck. During their brief exchanges, there was a tension that had nothing to do with the institutional power structure and everything to do with human connection. They began to find small moments to talk, always within the bounds of propriety, always with the awareness that eyes were watching. Sera spoke about her life before, about her dreams of becoming an artist, about the girlfriend who had betrayed her and the justice system that had failed her. Maya listened with an intensity that went far beyond professional interest, absorbing every word, every pause, every inflection. The turning point came during the Christmas season. The facility had organized a small arts program, allowing inmates to create decorations for the common areas. Maya volunteered to supervise, knowing Sera would be there. She watched as Sera's hands, so often clenched in frustration or hidden in pockets, came alive with paintbrushes and colored paper. Sera created a mural of a winter landscape, mountains and sky rendered in shades of blue and white, with a single bird in flight at the center. It was breathtaking in its longing, in its refusal to accept the walls that surrounded them all. When their hands accidentally touched while Maya helped hang the artwork, the electricity between them was undeniable. They stood there, frozen, for a moment that stretched into eternity, before Maya stepped back, her professional mask firmly in place, even as her heart threatened to pound out of her chest. Maya knew she was in love, and that knowledge terrified her. She began to avoid Sera, taking shifts in different blocks, finding excuses not to be where she knew Sera would be. But absence only intensified her feelings. She dreamed of Sera at night, woke with her name on her lips, and spent her days in a fog of confusion and desire. Meanwhile, Sera seemed to retreat into herself, the light that had begun to return to her eyes dimming once more. Other officers noticed and commented on how the new inmate had become even more withdrawn, but only Maya understood that she was the cause. The confrontation, when it came, was inevitable. Maya was conducting a late-night security check when she found Sera sitting alone in the common room, tears streaming down her face. Professional protocol dictated that Maya should have called for backup, should have maintained distance, but instead she found herself sitting down beside Sera, close but not touching, and asking what was wrong. Sera's response was raw and honest. She spoke about the loneliness of this place, about feeling invisible, about the one bright spot in her days being the moments when she saw Maya, and how even those had been taken away. She talked about feeling foolish for developing, feelings for someone she could never have, for daring to imagine a connection in a place designed to strip away humanity. Maya's response came from a place deeper than reason. She told Sera that she wasn't invisible, that she had never been invisible to Maya, not from that first morning in Block C. She confessed that she had been avoiding Sera not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much. She spoke about the impossibility of their situation, about the rules and regulations, and ethical boundaries that made any relationship between them forbidden. But even as she listed all the reasons why what they felt was wrong, she couldn't deny the truth of it. They sat there in that dimly lit common room, not touching, barely looking at each other, but connected by an understanding that transcended the physical space between them. What followed were months of exquisite torture. They couldn't act on their feelings, couldn't cross the lines that would destroy both of their lives, but they couldn't deny what existed between them either. They found ways to communicate in glances and brief words. In the book Sera left in the library that Maya would discover during her rounds, in the way Maya would sometimes linger an extra moment during head count. It was a relationship built on restraint, on everything they couldn't say and couldn't do, but it was real nonetheless. Maya began to understand that love didn't require possession or even proximity. It existed in the space between wanting and having, in the daily choice to honor someone's humanity even when circumstances made conventional expression impossible. Maya also began to investigate Sera's case. She spent her off hours researching, talking to lawyers, looking for angles that might have been missed during the original trial. She knew she couldn't promise Sera freedom, couldn't guarantee a happy ending, but she could fight for justice. It was the only way she could express her love within the boundaries that conscience and law imposed. She discovered inconsistencies in witness testimonies, evidence that suggested Sera had indeed been set up by her ex-girlfriend, and she compiled it all into a package that she sent to the public defender's office and several innocence projects. The day Sera's case was reopened, Maya wasn't on duty. She heard about it from another officer and had to excuse herself to the restroom where she cried tears of relief and hope. The legal process would be long and uncertain, but there was a chance now, a possibility that the system might correct its mistake. When she saw Sera next, during her evening shift 2 days later, the change in her was remarkable. The walls she had built around herself had begun to crack, not from defeat but from the tentative possibility of hope. They still couldn't be together. Not while Sera was incarcerated, not while Maya wore the uniform, but they had something that sustained them both. The knowledge that what they felt was real, that it mattered, and that sometimes love meant waiting, hoping, and fighting for justice rather than immediate gratification. Maya had learned that her feelings for Sera had made her a better officer, more empathetic, more committed to seeing the humanity in every person behind these walls. Sera had learned that even in the darkest places, connection was possible, that she was worthy of being seen and loved. The months of legal proceedings tested them both. There were setbacks and victories, moments of crushing disappointment and surges of hope. Through it all, they maintained their impossible connection, bound by rules that kept them apart but united by something stronger than barriers. Maya realized that what they had was more profound than many conventional relationships. It was love stripped of convenience, of physical expression, of all the usual trappings. It was pure in its impossibility, fierce in its restraint. If this story has touched something in your heart, if you believe in the power of human connection, even in the most unlikely circumstances, please take a moment to share this with others who might need to hear it. Like this video if you believe that love transcends boundaries, and subscribe to our channel, because every story we tell here is about the resilience of the human spirit and the courage it takes to feel deeply in a world that often demands we remain indifferent. Your engagement helps us continue sharing these important narratives. 14 months after Maya first saw Sera in Block C, the court announced its decision. New evidence had been deemed substantial. The original conviction was overturned, and Sera was to be released immediately. Maya wasn't there for the actual release because she had requested that day off, knowing that being present in her official capacity would make everything more complicated. Instead, she waited in a coffee shop 3 blocks from the prison, her hands shaking around a cup she couldn't drink from, watching the door. When Sera walked in, dressed in clothes that actually fit her hair catching the afternoon light, Maya's breath caught in her throat. They stood there, looking at each other across the small cafe, all the months of restraint and impossible longing suspended between them. Sera crossed the room slowly, and for the first time they were on equal ground. No uniforms, no bars, no power imbalance. Just 2 women who had found each other in the most unlikely of places. Before we conclude this journey, I want to ask you something. If you believe in second chances, in love that waits, in justice that prevails even when it takes time, please leave a comment below, sharing your thoughts, or simply write hope if this story resonated with you. Your words create a community of believers in love's transformative power. They sat down across from each other, and Maya reached across the table, offering her hand. Sera took it, their fingers intertwining, for the first time without fear or professional boundaries. They didn't know what the future held. Maya would have to navigate the ethical implications with her employer, might have to transfer to another facility, or leave the correction system entirely. Sera would have to rebuild a life disrupted by wrongful conviction, would have to heal from trauma and betrayal, but they would do it together, no longer separated by walls and rules, united instead by a love that had proven itself patient enough to wait, strong enough to endure, and true enough to transform them both. Their story wasn't ending. It was finally, against all odds, beginning.